So today I'm going to be talking about Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. Now, this is McCurdy's debut novel, and I was a big fan of her memoir, I'm Glad My Mum Died. I found I'm Glad My Mum Died to be incredibly sharp, really funny, but also able to, at times, pack quite a powerful emotional punch. So, of course, I was really keen to pick this one up. Set in Alaska, we follow the first-person narration of a 17-year-old girl called Waldo. The entire novel centres around Waldo's relationship with her older, married, creative English teacher, Mr. Korgy. And just like I'm Glad My Mum Died, this novel is packed with McCurdy's sharp wit, but also very, very dark humour. Theme, the big P back. Okay, let's look into some themage. So this novel is exploring power and control. We've got grooming and manipulation. We've got desire versus agency. We have some shame and self-justification. We have a lot of loneliness and a need for attention. We've got some family dysfunction. We've got coming of age, particularly coming of age without any kind of barriers or parental protection. And finally, and I'm not too sure this is kind of a theme, but I wrote it down in my themes little section, but the idea of kind of dark humour. Not self-deprecation exactly, but dark humour in order to kind of, or it being used as a coping mechanism. Character time. So we have Waldo, she is 17, she is incredibly sharp, incredibly self-perceptive, and very, very, very emotionally mature. In some ways not, but in some ways her sort of self-awareness is just like, whoa. And that kind of, the novel tries to justify this at times through basically her having to be the adult growing up. She grows up very, very poor. Her and her mum live in a trailer. I couldn't quite figure out in the novel if they've moved out of the trailer by the time she's 17, but she definitely grew up in the trailer. Her dad was sort of about a bit at the start of her life, and then he disappeared. Waldo is cynical, she's funny, and she is often very abrasive. Waldo is looking for validation, for acceptance. Enter Mr. Korgy, her older but married English teacher. Mr. Korgy is very charismatic, but he's also incredibly insecure. Mr. Korgy's dream was to be a writer, but of course, wife, kids, having to get a stable income, he became an English teacher. And what draws Waldo to him straight away is his vulnerability, his ability in their very first class together to say that he was a failure, that he wanted to be an English teacher and he was a complete failure. And that the idea of him telling them his truth and being 100% honest is hoping that they can be 100% honest with him in their writing. And that the most powerful bits of writing often come from a place of truth as opposed to how well written they are. And it's this initial moment which sort of really connects Waldo to Mr. Korgy. I don't want to go into too much detail about this novel because it's a very short novel and it is about just one thing. So it'll be very easy for me to sort of tell you the key set pieces that take place throughout. However, it is quite a shocking novel in moments, some proper kind of like jaw-droppy stuff. If I was to give it some sort of comparison, I would say if you've recently read Miranda July's All Fours, then you get a bit of an idea on where sort of sexually this novel goes at times. I would definitely say, for better or worse, that this novel's superpower is its absolute no-holds-bar honesty. It goes there, people. It really goes there. So, what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked. So I've already sort of said this, but it is very unflinching in its subject matter, and that definitely pulls you in. I would say another thing that I really enjoyed about this novel is it doesn't romanticise. At least I don't think so. I don't know. I think it depends on your mindset. But when reading this, I didn't feel like it was romanticising this relationship. I mean, some people could really complain that it doesn't go far enough into sort of like demonizing it. But there's a kind of balance there. And I felt like it really didn't romanticize it. It just put this character's like desires and wants and needs like just right out there for us. And yeah, I personally didn't think they were romanticised in any way. It wasn't that type of novel. And there is a rage beating at the heart of this novel. And I really enjoyed this book for that. The next thing I really enjoyed about it is it's very sharp, psychologically sharp. Like, McCurdy's sort of tuned into her generation. She's tuned into things and she's able to kind of just put them out there, in a really fresh and funny, darkly funny way. And her sense of humour is just my sense of humour. Next thing I really liked is for a debut novel, it is very tonally confident. It's incredibly confident. Now, I know it is repeating quite a few of the tricks that we saw in I'm Glad My Mum Died, so she already has a bit of a warm-up in that sense. But yeah, for a debut bit of fiction, I really enjoyed how confident it felt. Next thing I really enjoyed about this novel is its emotional complexity. Now, I don't necessarily know that McCurdy's putting it all out on the page, but it's that kind of sort of like, the space on the page, everybody. There's just moments where, like, I'd finish a chapter or a moment and I'd just have to sit with it and kind of like balance out everything that's happening in that moment. And I know that's on me as a reader, being maybe a bit a thoughtful reader, everybody. I'm a thoughtful reader. But yeah, but I do feel like it is intended, and yeah, really worked for me. And the next thing I really liked, and I've kind of covered this in a point already, but it's uncomfortable. It made me feel uncomfortable. And I just enjoy books that can do that, that can sort of make me go, oh, okay, Jiminy Cricket. So yeah, I really enjoyed this novel for that as well. What didn't I like? Okay, so my biggest flaw with this novel, and I think the novel tries to justify it by saying, you know, Waldo, she basically looks after her mum. She's the mum in this relationship. She's grown up. But I'm afraid to say that I think that Waldo is far too emotionally intelligent for a 17-year-old. I don't think a 17-year-old exists that is as emotionally intelligent as McCurdy is put into this novel. I actually feel like it's a 30-year-old's emotional intelligence in this novel, which I think is probably the age that McCurdy is. I don't know. I couldn't escape McCurdy from this book, which is a bit of a shame. And I know that's on me because I'm probably just taking her voice from I'm Glad My Mum Died, because it's very similar to what's happening in this book, or a similar sort of sharp wit and dark humour. I'm sort of merging the two together. I would be very interested on someone who hasn't read I'm Glad My Mum Died, who reads this, yeah, I would just be interested if they think the 17-year-old is too emotionally intelligent. For me, I just can't escape it. It feels way too advanced for any 17-year-old to be able to comprehend, just the observations alone. Next thing I didn't quite like is there are some sort of narrative beats and thematic beats that repeat over and over. And it's very light on plot. I'll get onto that in a minute as a negative, but what I would say is because it's light on plot, those sort of thematic beats that keep happening, that keep repeating, I didn't see them really advancing too much as the novel progressed, or at least in sections. And I felt like, yeah, because of the lack of plot, that sort of strained those themes as far as they could possibly go. And I felt they were pushed too far to the point where I was like, okay, I've already had this. What's new? Next thing I didn't quite like is this novel is incredibly thin on plot. And as said, I don't mind novels that are thin on plot if they can keep pushing and pushing the thematic elements. But as I've just mentioned, this novel sort of starts skirting the edges of that being a bit kind of over tiresome. So I would say that if this novel had a little bit more plot, a few more shifts in it, that would have kept things far more engaging. My next dislike is that some of the secondary characters feel underdeveloped. They just do. They're given time, but I just would have wanted more from them. My next dislike is that some scenes felt specifically written for provocation. I don't know if that's being unfair to McCurdy, but it's just, you know, there are moments where I was like, bloody hell. And, you know, if I'm being a bit of a wanker and I really examine it, I can go to myself, well, narratively, we don't need that. Even thematically, we don't need that. It adds something, but does it as enough to warrant its place in the novel? Maybe, but it's probably just in there to get people talking. And I don't mind that. I mean, do what you got to do, especially as, you know, as the if a character thinks, okay, I can't say too much because I don't want to give spoilers away, but there are moments where you go, oh, and yeah, I don't know. Actually, that's a bit of I don't know if that's necessarily a dislike. It's just something I was thinking throughout. And my final dislike is, I would say, the power dynamic is examined throughout this novel. And I do think McCurdy deliberately sort of plays a middle ground that allows you, the reader, to examine this from both sides. It allows you, the reader, to make those choices and those decisions. And I think that is a smart choice from McCurdy in this novel. It allows it to have its voice. It allows it to be as sharp and as dark and as funny as it needs to be. However, there does come a point in the latter half of the novel where I was thinking, I would like this power imbalance. I would like this to be examined just a little bit further. Your mileage may vary, but those are my kind of thoughts. It does enough. In a sense, it does enough that I was wholly satisfied with my own sort of exploration and sort of digging into this novel. But I do think there are people out there who might go, it just needs to be pushed a little bit further. So there you go, that's my thoughts on Half His Age. It's another winner for me from McCurdy. I'm gonna, I think, read most of what she puts out. I really enjoy her voice. It is sharp, it is dark, it is provocative, it's jaw-dropping in moments. It's got a lot of stuff that I really, really like. And I do feel like, even though it is treading ground that has been trod many times before, McCurdy's voice on this does feel quite fresh. So yeah, I'm going to give it, I think I might be being too generous, but I'm going to go with it. I'm going to give it 4 stars. I thought it was excellent. However, it is not without its flaws, and it could very easily, if you were like, this is a 2-star, 3-star read for me, Andy, I would understand. It just ticks a lot of my boxes for stuff that I enjoy. I always think humour and dark humour is really hard to do, and I think McCurdy is dialing in her voice. There are similarities between her memoir and this debut piece of fiction, and I would be very interested to see what her 3rd book is going to be. If it's just going to be a repeat of all her sort of tricks that she's learned, or whether she's going to really push herself in a different direction. I would be very interested to see her do something just a bit more long form. Both this book and I'm Glad My Mum Died, they're quite short, and I'll be interested to see her exploring ideas from way more angles. Way more angles? A few more angles? Yeah, just bigger in scope. So there you go, that is Half His Age. Have you read this novel? And if so, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please let me know in the comments below. As always, I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying whatever you might be reading, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye.